The Kansas-Nebraska Act. By January 1854, Senator Stephen Douglas was looking to create a state out of the territory of Nebraska so that a transcontinental railroad route could be built. And he was still trying to resolve the disputes between the North and the South after the Compromise of 1850. Douglas was also thinking about how to help the country grow westward into the land of the Louisiana Purchase in a way that would be beneficial for the unity of the country and keep both Northerners and Southerners happy. He proposed admitting two states, Kansas and Nebraska, with the idea of popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty would let the settlers who lived in the new territories decide by popular vote if slavery should be allowed or not within any new state. The problem was that this idea violated the terms of the Missouri Compromise, which said that all the land north of latitude 36 degrees 30 minutes would be free of slavery. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 narrowly passed in Congress and reignited the firestorm between pro- and anti-slavery groups in the United States. People on both sides of the issue flocked to the area to help sway the vote. A period of violent clashes, known as Bleeding Kansas, rocked the area for several years and claimed more than 50 lives. Two events in the late 1850s brought the country steps closer to civil war. The first was the Dred Scott Supreme Court decision. The case began in 1847 when Dred Scott, a slave, tried to sue for his freedom. In its landmark decision, the Supreme Court's ruling in the Scott case found that no black man could be considered a citizen of the United States. This bolstered Southern slave owners' commitment to challenging the limits set by the Missouri Compromise. In 1859, another event inched the country closer to war. Abolitionist John Brown organized a raid of a federal arsenal in Harper's Ferry, Virginia. Brown's goal was to use these weapons to arm Southern slaves and to encourage them to lead a slave rebellion. The arsenal was not well protected, so Brown was able to capture the arsenal easily. However, the U.S. Marines, under the command of Colonel Robert E. Lee, quickly surrounded the arsenal, and Brown was forced to surrender. He was tried and convicted for treason and was sentenced to death. This was yet another step in the march towards civil war, as Northerners became more active and vocal against slavery, while many Southerners became convinced that the North was waging a war against their way of life.
I became increasingly worried about my countrymen turning on each other. In a speech, I reminded them, "Let us at all times remember that all American citizens are brothers of a common country and should dwell together in the bonds of fraternal feeling."
Let's review what we have learned about the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Question 1. What did Stephen Douglas call the idea of allowing settlers in a region to decide if slavery should be allowed in a new territory? A. Regional decision-making. B. Territorialism. C. Popular sovereignty. D. Colonialism. The correct answer is C. Popular sovereignty was the idea of allowing the settlers of a territory to decide if they wanted to allow slavery. Question 2. What was the period of violent clashes that occurred after the passage of the Kansas-Nebraska Act known as? A. Bleeding Kansas. B. Rebels' riots. C. Kansas siege. D. Nebraska battles. If you answered A, you know that the violent clashes that occurred after the passage of the Kansas-Nebraska Act were known as Bleeding Kansas. Question 3. What was the Supreme Court's finding in the Dred Scott case? A. The Supreme Court found that slavery was unconstitutional. B. The Supreme Court found that slaves had the right to an equal education. C. The Supreme Court found that no black man could be considered a citizen of the United States. D. A and B. If you answered C, you know that the Supreme Court's finding in the Dred Scott case was that no black man could be considered a citizen of the United States.